Hello and welcome, students. Okay, so in today's lesson we will be reviewing your homework exercises that you had on in your action student book, pages 28, 29, 30, and 31. I will give you the correct answers, read the article, and follow along and make sure your answers are correct. If not, please correct them. So let's begin. Okay, so here we have a picture of King Abdullah, and our article, will be talking about him, so that's why we have his picture. Here we have a post that was posted back in March 17, 2005, and this talks about King Abdullah announces Petra Conference for Nobel Laureates. Okay. So this is about His Majesty King Abdullah on Thursday announced that Jordan will host next May a conference for winners of the Nobel Prize in the ancient city of Petra. So here, King Abdullah is announcing that he will be hosting the Nobel Prize in the ancient city of Petra, which is very exciting because we all know the Nobel Prize is a great deal. In a joint press statement with the Nobel Peace Prize winner Eli Wiesel, King Abdullah said the conference will be held on May 18th and 19th near the ancient city of Petra, prior to 2005's World Economic Forum at the Dead Sea. His Majesty said the conference is going to and can help the world's minds. This conference is going to be helpful. Why? Because, he's going to join the world's best minds to help the world's most vulnerable people. Okay, so he wanted the best minds in the world to come up with, some plans to help, the more unfortunate people, the more needy people. It is a first step to a new partnership in progress. Okay, so this is the new step that King Abdullah took in order to, have the best minds join together and help the most vulnerable people around the world. Okay, here we have let's first read the article. Well, let's answer 5. Work in pairs, which we're not going to do that. Do you know anything about the Nobel Prize Conference? Where have they been held? Okay, so the Nobel Prize conferences are held in Petra, Jordan. Many people had won Nobel Prizes, participate in these conferences to talk about the world's problems and to try to solve them. Okay, so the Nobel Prize conferences are held in Petra, Jordan. Many people who had won Nobel Prizes participate in these conferences to talk about the world's problems and try to solve them. Number 6, read the text and check your answers to exercise 5. Okay. In 2005, His Majesty King Abdullah II Ibn Hussein started an important event in Petra, Jordan. Every year, many people who had won Nobel Prizes that year were invited to take part in a conference to talk about and try to solve the world's problems. So here is our answer to number 5. Prize winners in all 6 disciplines were invited. His Majesty King Abdullah wanted to have the yearly event in Petra because of the city's history. The environment of Petra presented problems of the Nabatean people when they wanted to build the city. However, the people succeeded, and now the city has many visitors from all over the world. There have been a number of conferences in Petra since 2005. Famous Nobel Prize winners, along with young people from Jordan and other countries in the Middle East, talked about peace, they talked about medicine, they talked about science and culture. It has always been a wonderful and very special event. Okay, now let's answer the questions. Number 1, who started the event in Petra? Who started the event in Petra? As we read and the other article before, His Majesty King Abdullah II Ibn al-Hussein started the event in Petra. Number 2, why was the event held in Petra? Why was the event held in Petra? Well, because the city served as inspiration to solve difficult problems as in the past. The Nabatean people solved many problems to build the city. Again, the city served as inspiration to solve difficult problems as in the past. The Nabatean people solved many problems to build the city. Number 3, what happened at the conferences? Well, people discussed many world issues, including peace, medicine, and culture. Again, what happened at the conferences? People with great minds discussed world issues, including peace, medicine, culture, and tried to come up with solutions to help the unfortunate people. Number 4, what world problem would you like to be solved the most? What world problem would you like to be solved the most? In my opinion, I would like the problem of global warming to be solved because it affects all forms of life on Earth. It's affecting nature, it's affecting animals, it's affecting humans, it's affecting all forms of life on Earth. Okay, 8, I do not want, and 9, also I will give you my own writing. Here it says, read the quotation, do you agree with it, why or why not? Translate the quotation in Arabic. It says, I never see what has been done, I only see what remains to be done. Okay, I never see what has been done, I only see what remains to be done. Yani we don't see how, we don't see the process of it doing, we just see the result when it's done. That's exactly what this quotation means. Okay, moving along to the next page. Here we have, the words in bold are in the wrong sentence. The words in bold are in the wrong sentences. Put them in the correct place. Put them in the correct place. Radium, number 1, radium is one of the major research that Marie Curie made. That's wrong. Radium is one of the major findings that Marie Curie made. Number 2, a scientist uses a hypothesis to look at very small objects that are invisible to the human eye. That's incorrect. The correct word is microscope. A scientist uses a microscope to look at very small objects that are invisible to the human eye. Number 3, I conducted findings to the importance of science in our daily lives. That is incorrect. I conducted research into the importance of science in our daily lives. 4, a flask and a beaker. A flask and a beaker are a report used by scientists. No, A flask and a beaker are equipment used by scientists. Number 5. The teacher admired the informative equipment his student wrote about the history of the Nobel Prize. That is also incorrect. The correct word is report. The teacher admired the informative report his student wrote of the history of the Nobel Prize. Number 6. Einstein made a microscope about how light is transmitted before he did an experiment to test it. Incorrect. Einstein made a hypothesis. Einstein made a hypothesis about how light is transmitted before he did an experiment to test it out. So those are the correct answers. So again, 1 is findings, 2 we said microscope, 3 is research, 4 is equipment, 5 is report, 6 is hypotheses. Moving along down to our next article, here we have Read Robert's letter. What does he want to help with? Okay, and then read Robert's father's reply. Did he answer Robert's question and how? Okay. In this article, we are talking about Robert wants to help with his science project. Robert wants help with his science project. And the question 3, read Robert's father. Did he answer Robert's question and how? Yes, Robert's father answered Robert's question by giving him some instructions on what to do when carrying out an experiment. He did that based on his own experience because he is a scientist himself. Okay, so Robert's father is a scientist, and he did answer Robert's question. He gave him some instructions on what to do when carrying out an experiment. So let's go ahead and read Robert's letter to his father. Dear Robert, or this is, let's read the above one. Dear Dad, I'm doing an interesting science project at school at the moment. Okay, here we are using at the moment. This is present continuous. We are using the present continuous. Can you help me? For instance, what do scientists do when they carry out an experiment? Love, Robert. So he's asking his father for help. He wants to know, what do scientists do when they carry out their experiment? So Robert's father replied back with, Dear Robert, I'm delighted that you are showing interest in my work as a scientist. I'm delighted that you are showing interest in my work as a scientist. At the moment, I am working on an important project. There's a lot of very useful equipment here, and I am using this equipment to carry out my experience. For example, there's a huge microscope in the laboratory, which is helping me with my research. And we said that a microscope is, it's used by scientists to look at very small objects that are invisible to the human eye. When scientists carry out an experiment, when scientists carry out an experiment, they first decide what to investigate. They ask a question about why something is happening and try to think of a possible answer. This possible answer is called a hypothesis, and this is what we said that Albert Einstein used, and he made a hypothesis about how light is transmitted before he did an experiment on it. So also, Albert Einstein made a question and answered it himself, and then he carried out his experiment, and then he tested it. They observed the results And if necessary, they change their hypotheses. So they try it out, and if there is any, if it's necessary, they change what they think could be better. Finally, scientists write a report about what they have found out. This is how they share their findings with other scientists. This is how they share their findings with other scientists. So they have to make a hypothesis. They carry out an experiment and test their hypotheses. They observe the results, and if necessary, they change their hypotheses. I'm only working here for 2 more weeks. Then I'm coming home. Love, Dad. Okay, moving along to our next exercise. Read Robert's father's letter again and order the events. Okay, so here we have, he writes a report, he observes the result, then he carries out his experiment to test the hypotheses. The scientists decide what to investigate. He might change his hypotheses. And F is he creates a hypothesis. So we said by reading Robert's father's letter that first scientists decide what to investigate. Okay, then they create a hypothesis. Then they carry out experiments to test the hypotheses. Then they observe the result, and they might change the hypotheses if they see that something better could be applied. And finally, they write a report and share it with other scientists. Again, number 1, they might the scientists decide to investigate. They decide what they want to investigate. What project do they want to investigate? So they come up with a project and they come up with the answer, and then they create a hypothesis, and then they carry out experiments to test the hypotheses. Then they observe the result. Then they might change the hypotheses if they see something that applies better. And finally, they write a report and share it with other scientists. Okay, so that's it for today's lesson for these pages. Please correct your answers if they are not correct, and have a good day until our next lesson.